The internet is on fire tonight after a bombshell leak shook hip-hop to its core. Leaked audio. Jim Jones goes OFF on Chrissy's husband after Backstage Showdown. Yes, you heard that right. The Dipset legend himself, Jim Jones, is caught in a backstage meltdown so explosive that fans can barely believe the audio is real. What started as whispers of tension after a packed concert erupted into a full-blown war of words, and now the world has the receipts in the leaked clip. Jim's voice is unrecognizable, shaking with rage, spitting out insults that cut like knives, and threatening to expose secrets that could shatter reputations. Sources say the target of his fury was none other than Chrissy's husband. And what he said about him left everyone in the room stunned, but here's where it gets even wilder. Insiders claim this wasn't just a fight about ego. No, this was about betrayal, money, and a feud that's been simmering for years. The audio is real. The tension is real. And the fallout. It's about to rip through the industry in ways no one saw coming. Stay tuned, because what Jim Jones screamed backstage wasn't just anger. It was a threat. The story doesn't start with the leaked audio. It starts with a history drenched in loyalty, betrayal, and simmering grudges that have been boiling under the surface for years. To understand why Jim Jones snapped so violently backstage, you have to go all the way back to his roots, to the world of hip-hop crews, love tangled with business, and a legacy that has always been about respect versus humiliation. Jim Jones, the Harlem hustler who climbed from the streets to become one of the most recognizable names in hip-hop, has never been known for keeping his mouth shut. As one of the founding members of the Diplomats, aka Dipset, his image was forged in fire, loyalty, and survival. But behind the music, behind the swagger, there was always a family complicated, messy, and sometimes more dangerous than the streets themselves. And at the center of that family, Chrissy Lampkin, the woman who has stood by Jim through some of his darkest battles. Chrissy isn't just a girlfriend, a partner, or a TV character from Love and Hip Hop. She's the woman who has fought for Jim's name in rooms where men tried to silence him, who stared down rivals who dared to test his loyalty, who endured public humiliation on camera just to prove she could survive the madness of fame. But that fierce love came with baggage, because where Chrissy went, drama followed. And when she married into a circle of men who didn't play by the same rules, that baggage turned into explosions waiting to go off. Enter Chrissy's husband, a man who, depending on who you ask, is either a loyal partner who stood up for her when no one else would, or a manipulator who inserted himself into battles that weren't his to fight. Their marriage wasn't just about love. It was about power. Suddenly, Chrissy wasn't just Jim's girl. She was a wife, attached to a man who carried his own pride, his own ego, and his own ideas of what respect looked like. And to Jim Jones, who has built his entire life on loyalty and codes of respect. That was a problem waiting to ignite. The industry has whispered about tension for years, backstage arguments, cold shoulders at industry events, and barbed comments that never made it into interviews. Jim, ever the soldier, tried to hold back. Chrissy tried to keep the peace. But insiders knew it was only a matter of time before the dam broke. Because when money, legacy, and family collide, the fallout is always messy. And then came that night. The concert was already electric. Thousands of fans screaming Dipset classics, the air thick with smoke, camera flashes, and the raw energy of Harlem pride. Jim Jones had just finished a set that reminded the world why his name still rings bells. Backstage, the vibe was chaotic crew members running around, security barking orders, rappers and hangers-on crowding into the small, dimly lit rooms. It was hot, loud, suffocating. The kind of place where egos rub together until sparks fly. That's where the confrontation started, according to insiders. Chrissy's husband made a comment, a small one. Maybe even a throwaway line that cut deeper than anyone expected. Some say he accused Jim of playing the same old game and living off past glory. Others claim he made a slick remark about money, about who really controlled the bag in the relationship between Jim and Chrissy. Whatever the words were, they landed like a punch to the chest. Jim froze for a moment. Witnesses say his eyes narrowed, his body stiffened, and the room went silent. Then came the eruption. What happened next was captured in the no-infamous leaked audio. Jim Jones's voice, raw and furious, filled the room as he tore into Chrissy's husband with words so sharp, so venomous. They echoed far beyond those backstage walls. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about one insult. This wasn't just about bruised pride. This was years of pent-up anger spilling out at the worst possible time, in the most public possible way. And that's why the leaked clip has detonated across the internet. Because Jim didn't just go off, he threatened to pull back the curtain on secrets no one was supposed to hear. He hinted at betrayals, at money being stolen, at loyalty being broken in ways that could ruin reputations forever. Now the world is asking, was this just Jim losing control in the heat of the moment? Or was this his way of finally exposing truths he's been carrying for years? Because one thing is certain, after that audio, nothing in Jim's world will ever be the same again. And just when fans thought they'd heard it, all just when it seemed like Jim's meltdown was the headliner. Shocking twist made everything worse, because another clip leaked, one that revealed something darker, something even Jim Jones wasn't ready for. The first leaked audio had already gone viral, Jim's voice roaring with fury, his words cutting like blades through the smoky air of that backstage room. But what nobody realized in that moment was that the tape we all heard, it was only part one, because hours later, a second longer audio clip dropped online. And this time, it wasn't just Jim lashing out, it was him unloading years of suppressed venom secrets, and warnings so shocking that even his diehard fans were left in stunned silence. Let's set the scene. Witnesses described the backstage hallway as cramped, suffocating. The walls were sweating with condensation from the heat of bodies packed too tightly in. Security guards stood frozen, unsure whether to step in or stand back. Crew members whispered nervously, knowing that whatever happened in that room was going to spill into the blogs. Within hours, and then Jim's voice thundered over everything. "Don't you ever disrespect me again in front of my people. You think 'cause you married her, you can talk slick about me? I made this lane. You eating off a name I built?" The crowd of onlookers gasped. Chrissy's husband at first tried to fire back. "You living off the past, Jim? Ain't nobody scared of Dipset no more. You're just bitter 'cause I stepped in and gave her the stability you never could." That's when Jim lost it. The leaked audio captured the moment crystal clear. Stability. You talking about stability? You don't even know what loyalty looked like. You came in and tried to tear my family apart. Tried to act like you're the man when you don't got the stripes to back it up. At that point, you can hear people in the background trying to calm things down. Someone yells, "Yo, chill, this ain't the place." Another voice, shaky and nervous, mutters, "Turn the cameras off, turn MOFF." But the shouting only grew louder, and then came the first twist. Because Jim didn't just attack Chrissy's husband with words. He exposed him. In the heat of rage, Jim blurted out, "Tell Em about the money, huh? Tell Em how you've been living off Chrissy's checks. Tell Em about the deals you sabotaged because you couldn't stand seeing her loyal to me." The room went dead silent. That was the moment everything shifted. The implication wasn't just that Chrissy's husband had disrespected Jim, it was that he had been draining her, manipulating her, and maybe even blocking her career for his own ego. The audio cuts off right after those words, but by then, the internet already had enough fuel to burn the story for weeks. When the clip hit social media, reactions were instant and feral. Twitter threads exploded. Wait, Jim just accused Chrissy's husband of living off her money. If that's true, this is bigger than a fight. This whole thing sounds like some reality TV plot, but it's real life. Jim exposing family secrets like it's nothing. It's basically, Jim is saying he was the real backbone and this other dude is just dead weight. Instagram comments went nuclear. Memes of Jim Jones yelling were plastered over money bag emojis. Captions like "Call him Mr. Chrissy Lampkin" flooding the shade pages. And the most brutal part? Fans started digging. Old interviews, old episodes of Love and Hip Hop, old rumors about financial troubles, they resurfaced everywhere. Suddenly, Chrissy's husband wasn't just an anonymous figure. He was the man accused of draining her finances while disrespecting the man who had stood by her for decades. But here's where it gets even messier, because insiders leaked that Jim didn't stop after those words. They claim he leaned in, pointing directly at Chrissy's husband, and hissed, "You keep talking, Slick. I'll air everything out. Don't make me show receipts you don't want the world to see." Receipts. The word hit like a bullet. Everyone knows in hip-hop culture. Receipts means proof texts, contracts, bank statements, recordings. If Jim really had evidence of financial sabotage or betrayal, it wouldn't just humiliate Chrissy's husband. It would destroy his credibility completely. And according to one source who was backstage that night, Jim wasn't bluffing. They told a gossip blogger, "I saw the folder myself." Jim's been holding on to this for months. He was waiting for the right time. That night, he almost let it all out. Fans went wild with speculation. If Jim's got receipts, then dude's done. Finished. Imagine if Jim drops a diss track with the audio layered in. Career suicide for that man. This ain't even about Chrissy anymore. This is about legacy, respect, and power. But the twist didn't end there. Because hours later, another short clip leaked, this one not from Jim, but from Chrissy herself. In a shaky voice, she can be heard yelling in the background, "Stop it. Both of you, stop it. This is not the time. This is not the place. You're tearing everything apart." That single sentence broke the internet. Suddenly, fans weren't just talking about Jim versus Chrissy's husband. They were talking about Chrissy caught in the middle, screaming as the two men she loved most publicly ripped each other apart. Was she a victim of two egos colliding? Or was she secretly complicit in keeping the feud alive all these years? The fight wasn't just backstage anymore. It was online, in living rooms, in barbershops, on gossip sites. People chose sides, lines were drawn. And the question everyone was asking became unavoidable. Whose truth will destroy the other? First Jim's receipts or Chrissy's husband's secrets? And just when it seemed the chaos couldn't get any worse, insiders whispered that the audio we've heard so far isn't the end. Because apparently, the final piece of the recording ending so shocking, so vicious that blogs are afraid to drop it until lawyers clear it. And if that's true, the fight we've heard so far might just be the beginning of a scandal that could end careers, break families, and tear open wounds that were never supposed to be public. If the first two audio leaks had shaken the internet, the third one cracked it wide open. What fans thought was the climax turned out to be only the middle of the storm. Because when the uncut backstage recording finally surfaced, 30-7 minutes of raw chaos, everything we thought we knew about the Jim Jones versus Chrissy's husband feud flipped upside down. The new clip didn't just capture yelling. It captured betrayal, confessions, and secrets that had no business leaving that room. The escalation began right after Chrissy screamed, "Stop it. You're tearing everything apart." Instead of cooling down, the men doubled down. You can hear Jim breathing heavily, pacing like a caged animal, his voice shaking with fury. "You ain't never respected me. From day one, you've been trying to undermine me. You think marrying her put you above me? Bro, I've been here before you even had a seat at the table." Chrissy's husband snapped back, his voice cold and measured. "You been here, but you ain't done nothing with it. You talk about loyalty, but loyalty don't pay the bills. I stepped in where you couldn't, and you can't stand it." The crowd gasped in the background. In that one sentence, he framed himself as Chrissy's true provider, the man who saved her from a lifetime of waiting on Jim to get it together. For fans who'd followed Chrissy and Jim's rocky history on Love and Hip Hop, the words cut deep. He wasn't just attacking Jim's career, he was attacking his manhood. And that's when Jim went nuclear. "Don't you ever play me like that. You wasn't there when we was starving, when she was crying, when we was fighting to build this. You walked in when the foundation was already laid and tried to claim the house. Nah, you don't get to erase me like that." The audio captured the moment Jim's voice cracked, not just with rage, but with pain. And that's what made the next part so chilling. Because instead of retreating, Chrissy's husband laughed. A low, smug laugh that sent fans into a frenzy when they heard it. "If the foundation was so strong, why'd she marry me?" That line was the dagger. The room erupted. People shouted, chairs scraped across the floor, and in the background you can hear someone yelling, "Yo, cut the mics, cut the mix." But it was too late. The damage was done. The internet tore itself apart the moment that line dropped on Twitter. The hashtag why she married me trended worldwide. Memes flooded timelines, some mocking Jim, others condemning Chrissy's husband for being disrespectful beyond repair. Fans argued nonstop. That line just killed Jim. Straight humiliation. Nah, that laugh was demonic. That man's playing a dangerous game. Y'all forgetting Chrissy proposed to Jim on TV and waited years for him. Maybe the husband had a point, but the tape wasn't finished. Because just when the shouting reached its peak, Jim made a revelation that shifted everything. His voice dropped lower, deadly calm. "You want to talk about marriage? Tell them how you've been cheating. Tell them about the hotel receipts. Tell them about the DMIs. You really want to do this? 'Cause I'll bury you right now." Gasps. Shuffling. A loud crash, like someone slamming against a wall. And then Chrissy's own voice breaking through, shrill and panicked. "Stop. Stop it, both of you. Not here. Not like this." But the silence after her screams said it all. Jim had dropped the ultimate bomb. Accusations of infidelity. And not just casual rumors, he claimed to have receipts. When that part of the clip hit the blogs, fans lost their minds. Forums lit up with speculation about who the other woman could be. Whether Jim really had proof, and if Chrissy already knew. Some fans even pointed to cryptic posts from women on Instagram who had tagged Chrissy's husband in the past. Their captions suddenly taking on a new, sinister meaning. And while fans debated, the industry began reacting. A source close to the concert promoters leaked to gossip sites that the incident nearly caused the entire tour to collapse. "It wasn't just an argument," the source said. "We had security ready to drag people out. If that fight had gone physical, the whole event would have been shut down." Meanwhile, other insiders whispered that Jim wasn't bluffing about the receipts. They claimed he had screenshots, bank records, even voice notes, proof not only of infidelity, but of shady financial dealings tied to Chrissy's husband's name. This wasn't just a family spat anymore. This was a war of reputations, with each man holding weapons that could annihilate the other. But here's where the escalation turned into pure horror, because at the very end of the 37-minute clip, just as things seem to calm down, you can hear Chrissy crying, whispering something barely audible but caught on tape. "If this comes out, it'll ruin everything. Please don't do this to me." That one sentence flipped the narrative yet again. Now, fans weren't just debating Jim versus Chrissy's husband. They were asking the heartbreaking question. Was Chrissy herself about to be destroyed by the very men who claimed to love her? Instagram comments blew up. Poor Chrissy. She's been loyal to Jim for decades, and now she's caught in the crossfire. Both these men using her name like it's a trophy. Disgusting. Is the definition of a love triangle turned battlefield? A love triangle turned battlefield? The blogs had a field day. The Shade Room captioned the leak. Jim accuses Chrissy's husband of infidelity and money scandals backstage. Chaos gets darker. Hollywood Unlocked dropped a poll asking fans, whose side are you on, Jim? Chrissy's husband or Chrissy herself? Tens of thousands voted, and shockingly, Chrissy got the majority. The public wasn't choosing between the men anymore. They were rallying behind her. But behind closed doors, insiders whispered that Chrissy wasn't as innocent as fans thought. Rumors surfaced that she'd known about her husband's alleged infidelities for months, maybe even years, but stayed silent to protect her marriage. And now, with Jim threatening to expose everything, her silence might finally cost her everything she'd built. The leaks had turned a private feud into a public scandal, and the lines of loyalty were officially shattered. And just when fans thought it couldn't get darker, another twist emerged. Because, according to sources, there's one more audio file out there. A final piece of the fight. And in that recording, Jim doesn't just threaten Chrissy's husband. He names names, industry names, street names, people whose involvement could take this scandal from gossip blogs straight into dangerous territory. And if that last file drops, it won't just ruin reputations. It could ignite a war that goes way beyond family drama. The leaked 37-minute audio was already viral. But once fans heard Chrissy whisper, "If this comes out, it'll ruin everything," the conversation exploded far beyond hip-hop blogs. This wasn't just about a messy backstage fight. Anymore, it had become a cultural firestorm. Jim Jones, Chrissy, and her husband were no longer just players in a private feud. They were the centerpiece of a scandal that pulled in fans, celebrities, media outlets, and even industry executives terrified of where the fallout could lead. Twitter became the front line. Overnight, 3 hashtags dominated the platform: hashtag Team Jim, hashtag Team Chrissy, and hashtag Expose the Husband. Each one had millions of tweets within hours. Some fans stood behind Jim, arguing that he'd carried Chrissy for years and deserved respect. Others defended Chrissy, painting her as a woman trapped between 2 men more obsessed with ego than love. And then came the brutal attacks on her husband, with fans dissecting every rumor about his finances, his loyalty, and his alleged other women. Sample tweets: "Jim might be messy, but he never lied about loyalty. The husband looks shady AF. Chrissy don't deserve this. These men been embarrassing her for years. Let that woman breathe." If Jim really drops them receipts, I guarantee this man won't show his face in public again. On TikTok, the scandal turned into a full-blown series of viral edits. Creators spliced together clips of Jim and Chrissy from Love and Hip Hop, overlaying the leaked audio so fans could relive the drama with visuals. Others acted out skits of the fight, mimicking Jim's anger and the husband's smug laugh. One viral TikTok captioned Jim, "I'll bury you/husband, why she married me." Racked up 10 million views in less than 24 hours. Instagram gossip blogs had a feeding frenzy. The Shade Room, Hollywood Unlocked, and Onsite each dropped multiple posts analyzing every second of the leak. Fans filled the comments sections with snake emojis aimed at Chrissy's husband and crying emojis under Chrissy's name. Some even tagged Jim, begging him to release the so-called receipts and finish the job. But while social media turned the fight into entertainment, the industry saw it differently. Behind the scenes, sources claimed that promoters were furious. One insider told a blogger, "This kind of drama kills tours. Sponsors don't want to touch it. If Jim drops names like he threatened, you're looking at blacklists, lawsuits, and maybe even street retaliation." The fear wasn't exaggerated. Jim's hint about naming names had people whispering about who else might get exposed. Rumors swirled that the receipts weren't just about infidelity, but about business deals gone dirty, money laundering, backdoor contracts, and alliances with figures the industry tries to pretend don't exist. If that last file leaked, it could drag powerful people into the scandal. And then came the celebrity reactions. 50 Cent, never one to stay silent on drama, posted a meme of Jim yelling with the caption, "Backstage Love and Hip Hop Live Edition. LOL. Cardi B tweeted, "I feel bad for Chrissy. Imagine choosing love and getting clowned by both sides. SMH. Even Remy Ma chimed in during a podcast. When family business gets out like this, it's war. Ain't no coming back. Meanwhile, Fat Joe went on IG Live and tried to calm things down. Jim, my brother, Chrissy, my sister. I don't know what's going on, but y'all better squash this before it gets ugly. His comments only fueled speculation that the beef wasn't just personal, but something the wider hip-hop community was watching nervously. The general public was split. But one theme kept surfacing: sympathy for Chrissy. Fans remembered her proposal to Jim on Love and Hip Hop, her years of waiting for a marriage that never came, and now the public humiliation of being caught between a furious partner and a husband accused of betrayal. One viral comment said it all: Chrissy been loyal, patient, and ride or die. And this is her reward: heartbreak and humiliation. But as the outrage grew, another disturbing twist hit the headlines. An anonymous email allegedly sent to multiple gossip outlets claimed that Chrissy's husband was preparing to hit back with his own leaks. According to the email, he had his own recordings, conversations, messages, and alleged evidence that Jim wasn't the saint he claimed to be. This rumor threw gasoline on the fire. If true, it meant we were only in the middle of a war, not the end. Instead of Jim burying the husband might be ready to bury Jim right back. And fans were eating it up. Instagram flooded with memes captioned, "Season 2 coming soon and who dropping the next leak?" Some even joked that Zeus Network should cut the cameras on and turn the feud into a reality show. But for those close to the situation, nothing about it felt like entertainment anymore. Sources whispered that Chrissy had gone silent, avoiding interviews, refusing to go live, and allegedly telling friends she felt betrayed by everyone. If true, it painted a heartbreaking picture of a woman abandoned on both sides, watching her private life become public destruction. The industry summed it up best: this isn't a befits a bomb waiting to go off. And if that final recording surfaces, there's no telling who survives it. The public was hooked. The industry was terrified. And Chrissy? She was left with the weight of a secret no one could carry. Because if Jim's last tape really names names, and this isn't just gossip anymore, it's war. Just when fans thought they had heard every scream, every insult, every betrayal from that infamous backstage night, one last whisper tore through the internet like wildfire. The rumor that there was a final recording became reality. And this wasn't just another leak of Jim Jones yelling at Chrissy's husband. This was the kind of audio that could ruin lives, collapse alliances, and drag the entire hip-hop industry into a storm bigger than any diss track. According to insiders, the unreleased file passed around in group chats among journalists and bloggers captured Jim in a state no one had ever heard before. Not the cool Harlem hustler persona, not the Dipset legend. This was Jim unchained, raw, spitting names and secrets like bullets. One line, allegedly from the recording, has already leaked in text form. Y'all think this about marriage? Nah, this about money. And if they want to test me, I'll put the paperwork out. Y'all know who you been stealing from? Don't make me say the names. You're all connected to people you don't want to see exposed. That single quote froze the internet. What names was Jim threatening to drop? Were these street figures? Industry moguls? Executives who had quietly profited off Chrissy's husband behind closed doors? The danger wasn't lost on anyone. Bloggers admitted privately they were scared to post the full file without lawyers clearing it. One even tweeted and deleted, "This ain't just gossip anymore. These names too heavy." Fans, of course, turned speculation into hysteria. On Reddit, entire threads tried to piece together who Jim might have been talking about. Some pointed at old Dipset beefs. Others linked it to Chrissy's reality TV deals. A few even claimed the paperwork Jim mentioned tied her husband to secret contracts that redirected money meant for Chrissy into other people's pockets. But the most heartbreaking part came at the very end of the alleged tape. After Jim's voice fades, after the shouting dies down, there's silence, followed by Chrissy's voice, broken, whispering through tears. "Why would you do this here? In front of everybody? You've promised me this family wouldn't destroy itself in public?" That line changed everything, because it wasn't just a feud anymore, it was a collapse. A woman watching her partner and the man she once built her world with tear each other apart until nothing was left but humiliation. The cliffhanger now isn't if the final recording will drop, it's when. And when it does, will it reveal the names Jim threatened to expose? Will it prove Chrissy's husband was stealing, cheating, and scheming behind the scenes? Or will it drag Jim down too, showing him as reckless enough to burn bridges that can never be rebuilt? Nobody knows. But one thing is certain. When that last file hits the internet, it won't just be Chrissy's marriage or Jim's reputation on the line. It could ignite a feud that shakes the entire culture. And until then, the world waits refreshing feeds. Scanning blogs, wondering whose name Jim Jones is about to drag into the fire? Because if this was the warm-up, the real explosion hasn't even started yet. And that's where we leave this story for now. A backstage showdown turned into a cultural earthquake. A leaked audio that exposed more than just tempers and whispers of a final recording that could drop at any moment. Jim Jones didn't just go off on Chrissy's husband. He cracked open years of betrayal, family, politics, and money drama that fans had only speculated about. And now, with that last file hanging over everyone's heads, the question isn't, if the truth comes out, it's how much of it will survive once it does. Because here's the chilling reality. Once Jim names names, once the paperwork he threatened to expose hits the light, this isn't going to stay family business. It'll drag in industry giants, reality TV networks, maybe even street figures whose secrets were never supposed to leave closed doors. The blogs will eat it alive. The fans will dissect it like detectives, and the industry. The industry will scramble to protect its own. So now I want to hear from you. Whose side are you really on? Do you believe Jim is a wounded legend finally, standing up against years of disrespect? Do you think Chrissy's husband is the one holding secrets too dark to face the public? Or do you believe Chrissy herself is the real victim, trapped between two men willing to destroy her reputation, just to win the war of egos? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. This debate is ripping through every timeline, every forum, every barbershop. I want to know, do you think the final leak will end Jim and the husband, or expose them both? And if you were shocked by tonight's breakdown, hit that like button right now. Smash subscribe and ring the bell. Because the moment that last recording drops, you won't want to be the last to hear it. Trust me, when the final piece of audio goes public, it won't just break the internet. It'll break friendships, marriages, and possibly careers. This isn't the end of the story. This is the pause before the explosion. And when it blows, we'll be right here covering every second. And